Good evening, citizens of Portsmouth, members of the media, and my colleagues on council. I will now call the meeting to order. I would now like to ask everyone to please stand for a moment of silence, and following the moment of silence, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Present.
Mr. Battle.
Here.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Here.
Mr. Moody.
Here.
Dr. Whitaker.
Present.
Mr. Woodard.
Here.
Mayor Glover.
Here. Thank you, ma'am. Members of council, we have for our consideration the minutes of a called meeting on June 27, 2022, and a called meeting on June 28, 2022, and a regular meeting on June 28, 2022. Is there any discussion of the minutes? If not, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. Before we move on with the agenda, I would like to take this moment to welcome to our team our new city manager, Ms. Tanya Chapman. Madam Clerk, would you please read our speaker statement?
City Council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the City Council as a body rather than to any particular member of the City Council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only the Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker who fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude his/her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. We have now come to the agenda item on our schedule, agenda public hearings. Item 22-209, Z22-02, item A. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the agenda item and ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
Ordinance granting the request of Don Scott to rezone approximately 5.38 acres at 0 Effingham Street from downtown D1 T5 sub-district to conditional general mixed use in order to develop a self-service storage facility. The applicant is concurrently requesting a use permit for the self-service storage facility use UP 2209. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property as mixed-use employment. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Planning Commission recommends approval. And the ordinance reads Zoning Amendment Ordinance Z22-02.
Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant present? Mr. Scott, sir, would you come forward?
Thank you.
Sir, you have 10 minutes.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think I'm going to need the full 10 minutes. And honorable members of the council, city manager, welcome. This application came before the planning council, as you know, and it was approved 7-0 from the planning council. This property is a property that is located on Effingham Street where the former Washington Park used to be. That property has been vacant, I want to say, I don't want to do the math wrong, I want to say about 40 years it's been off the rolls. And it's a property that is owned currently by PRHA. That property is what they call a brownfield site or a Superfund site. It has no, it doesn't have a lot of uses for development other than industrial opportunities like this one. This property has been vacant in the city of Portsmouth now for a while. This is an opportunity for two things to happen. Number one, PRHA will get income from the sale of the property, and I've spoken with Mr. Bland. I think he's here. There he is. I've spoken with Mr. Bland, and Mr. Bland has indicated to me that PRHA is requesting that council approve this project. It will bring some much-needed revenue to the city, but more importantly, as you know, PRHA does not pay taxes on property. This also will bring this property onto the rolls to be a tax-producing property. This facility is we're requesting an ordinance to rezone this so that we can put a safe storage unit there. The storage unit will be about three stories high. We have indicated to the Planning Commission and to the city staff, the last time this project came up last year, I think it went down on a vote of 4-3. There was some issues that council raised. I watched the tape. We made a different proffer this time. The last proffer gave EPA the final say on property, and that's no small feat. I mean, that's a big deal. EPA's responsibility is to make sure that everything is safe, but we also added the city and the city staff to that proffer so that now the city will also have a strong say in that. Additionally, we have gone before the Prentice Park Civic League. At that Civic League meeting, it was a unanimous vote from a very, very well-attended crowd with a lot of questions. It was a unanimous vote that this project be approved. And so I don't want to take up all the time. The engineers from the company are here, as well as the architects and the folks who are responsible for getting the site together. And I'm hoping that the council will support this measure. And if there are any questions, if there's anything outside of the area of my expertise, I'll hand it off to the rest of the team here.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions from my colleagues on council? Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Scott, Delegate Scott.
No, you could just don. Mr. Scott is fine. Thank you, sir.
You can never take the title off as an elected official. You did a great job in explaining why this item should have been approved back a year ago. It's basically the same item. Three of us thought it was good, getting a 40-year-old vacant property back on the tax roll, and on property that was actually, I think, a Superfund site as well. But you mentioned the only change, other than you're representing the item this time, you mentioned a change in the EPA.
We made a change in the proffer. So the EPA obviously is responsible for all brownfield sites, and they recommended approval of the project. But we also wanted to make sure that the city had approval and control over the site for environmental reasons as well, if there is an issue that needs to be addressed. And so we changed the proffer, and the city graciously accepted that proffer. And so that's a big change. And so that gives the city co-responsibility, but without co-liability to make this project make sure that it's insured and safe.
Well, it will certainly have my support once again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Lucas Burke, ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Delegate Scott, for presenting to us tonight. Of course, I was on the prevailing side for this to go through previously, and as a former liaison to the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority, this is one of the properties that we have looked at, or they have looked at, for quite some time. And there is a list of things that shows that cannot go on this site, and this is one of the most appropriate uses for this site. Of course, the brownfield, and knowing that no schools or no water types could be used there, I think it's a great deal. I've spoke with members on PRHA, and they desperately need the funds to continue some of the projects they're working on, specifically with the Lexington Place and other properties, so that people can have the affordable housing that they need. So I will be supporting this again tonight as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Well, I'll let the 10-minute time for Mr. Scott to finish. I was going to make a comment, but it's not a question.
If it's not a question,
Well,
then.
You're certainly welcome
I
to
mean,
make a comment as well.
obviously, the concern here is, with a property like this, if you pass by it, it's a blight. It's on Effingham Street. It's a fence that's, it costs a lot of money to keep up the repairs. It's not the highest priority. Unfortunately, we have so many other priorities in the city. And it's overgrown from time to time. It takes a lot of care and attention and maintenance, and that's another cost to the city. So I'm hopeful that we can get this project off the ground, get some much-needed resources to the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority, and at the same time add much-needed tax revenue and help continue to expand our tax base for a needed service. As you know, shipyard workers pass by there a lot, people who are coming in the city. We have affordable housing issues that we're trying to work on, and storage is one of those issues that we need. So I'm hopeful that the city will, that the city council respectfully will approve this project.
Thank you, sir. And so, Dr. Whitaker, did you want to make your comment at this point, sir?
Yes.
You have the floor.
Thank you. The site, as many of us know, has a history to it. Superfund site that we had Washington Park. Persons were living on it. There were significant contamination issues. This is something that has not just happened in Portsmouth, but it is something that has happened nationwide, over 1,000-some Superfund sites. Many of those are in very marginalized and vulnerable communities that are typically overlooked and typically expended, and the rationale typically is that we're going to be bringing in more revenue into the city, which I can understand, but I do not support. The issue that I have is that these sites are not risk-free, and you still have vulnerable communities that are around the sites. Also, since we heard this the first time, there has been some court rulings by the Supreme Court that has stripped the EPA of some authorities. And I'm concerned that if the citizens who are affected by any future issues with that property, if they would have any true redress. And I see this council as being, at this point, based on the composition of the Supreme Court, the last standard bearer to protect those that are vulnerable, that do not have a voice and not always conscious of all that is around. And so because of the history of the Superfund site and the impact it has had, particularly in minority communities, and I still do not see where those issues have truly been addressed, and also with the present makeup of our court, as well as this very conservative governor that we now have in place, I'm just not comfortable with allowing development on that site and potentially exposing children and families to potential risk.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have my questions as well about the health risk of this site. I'm actually familiar with that. I grew up in the same area. The site where our 7-Eleven and the Dollar General is located at was actually a part of the cleanup of the lead problem that was over there as well. And actually my family lived in the houses that were actually destroyed to clean up that site and get it back right for future developments. So at this time, once again, I'm not going to support it. I didn't think we get an update on exactly the cleanup of this particular site. I understand the need for revenue in our city. I understand the need for quality projects as well. But we can't just chase a dollar because we need tax revenue. Okay, we got to make sure that we're getting quality projects and not just quantity. So I too do not support this project. I think there's a better need for this site, and that's my stance on it.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. You are not required to have signed up to come and speak on this matter. It is a public hearing. If you desire to speak on this matter, you can come forward. You need to state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes. I need to add a caveat to this point in that if you come forward and speak on this public hearing, you must speak to the public hearing. You cannot speak to something that is unrelated or not germane to the subject. If you do that, I'm going to ask you to please get back on subject, and if you choose not to do that, I'm going to kindly ask you to take your seat. Okay? Ma'am, if you would please state your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
My name is Donna Sy, and I live at 3104 Garland Drive in Portsmouth. All right, now, if nothing is on this land, then whatever might be escaping off the land is going to be escaping into the atmosphere. But if you have something on it, it's going to keep whatever it is down in the ground. So there won't be any need of being worried about getting sick. But Portsmouth was a war zone. I mean, that's why we were created, is to fight wars. So you're going to have Superfund sites all over the place. Now, having a building on it is going to protect the ground from having stuff escape from it. So that's what I want to say, and it's going to protect the land and the folks. So I say approve of it.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you come forward, please state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Sergio O'Neill. I live at 1420 Elm, which is not too far from this site. There's a house that sits right there on the corner of this particular site by the railroad tracks on Effingham Street. Now, I'm hearing a lot of conversation around the health impacts and all that. My family member used to live in that house before it was sold to a good friend of mine that some of you all choose to put your campaign signs around. So I want us to understand that, and when we talk about health impacts and all of that, I want y'all to go by my friend's house and make sure her health impacts are good as well, because she's a 3-time cancer survivor living in that house right now. So and I'm quite sure that she would be more than happy to see something come up around her house that brings tax revenue, that doesn't make her house sit out like a sore thumb for bullet holes and anything else to be shot up in there. So we need to make sure that we need that revenue in this city. And why we're not chasing tax dollars for the right reasons, we need those tax dollars, because on top of that, this is a big military town, which I'm quite sure all of you are aware. They need storage facilities to put their items in when they get ready to choose to move or whatever the case might be, because the transition period sometimes isn't always as smooth as some would think it is. So why would we do things, why would we not approve an item when we're trying to draw people to the city to have somewhere to go, to say, hey, you know what, I can have a storage, because I don't believe there's another storage facility within 5 miles of the downtown area. So are we going to tell people that when they want to move to Portsmouth that, hey, guess what? If you will need something to be stored, you have to drive like 6, 7, 10 miles down the street to go get your property. And then if you're renting a truck or something to haul those items, that's extra money. So why not put a facility in the vicinity where we're trying to attract people to, so they don't have to incur those costs? I'm quite sure the EPA and the other government agencies looked at that site and, and did the proper cleanup or whatever the case might be, because guess what? Some of those people that lived in Washington Park are still living right now. And they can guarantee you all of this hoopla about, well, my health wasn't protected and all that, that same hoopla should have been going on then. So we need to make sure, please make sure that whatever we do, we're not going to deny this for self-serving reasons or to make ourselves look good because we're in another situation, because that's truly not going to fly this time. I don't live at that property. I have no interest in that storage facility, but I have an interest in the city of Portsmouth. And one thing I'm about is always make sure that we do things in decency and order. Thank you.
Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. And Mr. O'Neill, I just want to let you know, they actually, they did testing around that area, and that's why some of those homes was destroyed, because they deemed those lands were contaminated. This was in the past. This was in the past.
Excuse me, hold on, Councilman Woodard, could you just hold on for a second? Ladies and gentlemen, it is important that we respect the person that has the floor. And I need you all to work with us in doing that. Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. They did testing in that area. Once again, like I said, I grew up in that area as well, and they actually came across the street and they deemed that those sites and those locations were not contaminated with lead. So there was some things that was done. I can't speak on your family member that has a home near that actual location, but their due diligence was done in the past.
Thank you, sir. Could you come forward, sir? And sir, while you're coming up, I'm going to ask that Mr. Moody, he wanted the floor, so we're going to give Mr. Moody the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Neal mentioned that some of the residents that live there are probably still alive. I know a lady that was really the advocate for relocating the people and getting them off of contaminated site. She worked with the late Congressman Norman Sosiski, and she spoke before this council, well, not this council, for a council I was on, many, many times advocating the EPA and the government do something. Her name is Helen Person. She's still alive. The fact that that property is even in play for use, and it does currently have commercial businesses there, is a credit to her and the late congressman and other people who work to get them off that contaminated site and get the EPA that spent a lot of money to remediate the contamination off of there to make it suitable for commercial businesses like we're talking about tonight to go there. So to me, it makes no sense whatsoever not to put commercial businesses back there and get them on the tax rolls. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
Sergeant Major.
You have the floor, sir. If you would please state your name and address. You will have 5 minutes.
Portsmouth proud. Clyde A. Total, 1029 Blair Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. Came here in 1947 after being discharged out of the Army. I know what this city was like. It was a great city. Everybody was hanging, worked together. If we sit here and every time somebody want to come here and build something and do something, and we kick back and want to knock it, why are we still with horse and wagon? Look, I'm almost 100 years old, and I want you to let progress move on in the city so that I can stop paying tax. You know, in 5 years, I'll be 100 years old, 5 more years. This year, I'll be 96. I have spent United States Army World War II. I have spent Korea as a Marine. I spent Vietnam as a Marine. And the mayor knows this because he was my doctor. I'm talking about a real doctor that crawled and got me when I was wounded, cut off leg, did all that. But let me tell you something. If we keep on every time somebody want to better do something in this city, and we got a few that come up here, want to go back to where horse and wagon, look, pay my tax on my house and let me stop paying tax and stop always knocking everything, and let's join together and always move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, if you would state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Debbie Morton, and I live in Broad Street in Port Norfolk. I just want to say that I agree with everything that has been said thus far, and this is a storage facility. We're not putting apartments here for people to live in and possibly get sick. We're going to store stuff here. We're not, people's lives are not going to be at danger. People's stuff is going to be there. I mean, for Pete's sake, let them put their stuff there. My daughter is in the Army, and when she moves, she needs a place to put her stuff. And it don't need to be in Timbuktu for her to go to her next duty station. And I'm sure these military people feel the exact same way. So you grew up around that place. You're not dead. You look pretty healthy. You look pretty healthy, Mr. Woodard. So, I think all is well. Let's take the revenue and quit playing around with these old wives' secrets or whatever. I never even heard about that stupid whatever you're talking about, Mr. Whitaker. Get over it, get on with it, and let's make some money in this city. Mr. Barnes, I don't know where he went. He's gone all of a sudden. He didn't want to hear what I had to say, but he's always talking about make some money in the city. Mr. Barnes, vote to make some money in this city, would you? Let's get over this. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Good evening. My name is...
Hold on, man. Hold on. He wanted the floor first. Just pause for a minute. We're going to give him the floor. Sir, you have the floor.
The assessment of how well Mr. Woodard looks isn't what we make our decisions on. And I take offense to the comment because, and for those of you who are ahistorical, I take offense to it because there were children that were impacted. And so before you start applauding and clapping over ignorance, I'm not going to overlook that there were...
Please, ladies and gentlemen.
There were children that were impacted by that site, and you don't know the impact that it's still having in the lives of people. And so I'm not going to sit here and allow you to discount our history and the impact of what this site said. And I'm not just saying that this is how I always stand. So I just want to make that clear.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, please, we cannot have outbursts from the audience. Thank you. Ma'am, you have the floor. Please state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Joris Whitehurst Roberts. I reside at 5644 Gregory Court, Portsmouth, Virginia, 23703. But more importantly, I lived on Effingham Street for a lot of years. I lived at 2607 Effingham Street, and then we were transported across the street where where the water tower is. And my mother, who has died, that's her house that's right beside the water tower. I lived on Effingham Street as a child. The only reason why I wasn't born in Portsmouth is because my mother had to go to Norfolk to community hospital for me to be born in the black hospital. Otherwise, for almost 77 years, I have been a resident of Portsmouth, Virginia, born and raised. I lived close to Washington Park. We played all up and down the street. We've talked about the EPA and the lead and all of that stuff like that. If we don't allow the storage unit or something like the storage unit to be built, what are you going to put there? You can't put a school. You can't put homes. You can't put anything that people are going to reside in, play in. You can't put a park there. So what are you going to put there? The best thing to put is something like the storage building, wherein the people that are coming into our city, they'll have some place, right, we are military and they're coming and going. And you see all the time, they're putting stuff out on the street because they don't have any place to store it when they're coming in to live, and especially when they are leaving. So we need to do something about it. We talk about money. Yes, we do need money. I'm tired of being on the side wherein our taxes are high. What are we going to do in order to bring our tax rate down? You keep on saying no, 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 and you wait for one person to say no, and then some of you follow down behind that one person. I want to know, what are you going to do to make my taxes go down? Wherein, do you believe that my car, which is a 2014, last year it was at one rate. I'm paying more this year on a car that's depreciating. So what are you going to do for the city of Portsmouth, for our tax rate? What are you going to do for the people of Portsmouth in order for them to have a better life? Stop saying no. Like I said, I lived for almost 77 years. I'm not dead. Thank God I haven't gotten cancer or anything else of that nature. We need you to work for us and not keep on working for yourselves.
Sir, you may come forward.
I just wanted to address a couple of things. One of the things that I think I also had the opportunity and the privilege to serve as chair of Economic Development Authority a while ago. And one of the things that we always talked about is being good partners with our corporate citizens. This is a good corporate partner who has already indicated they're going to make investments and making sure that we have access to erect a center in that area. They've already made an agreement with the Prentice Park Civic League to partner with them to make sure that we do some things in that community. More importantly, this is a property that right now is earning zero. In fact, it's costing the city. I just want to reiterate the purchase price. I think, Mr. Bland, is a $500,000 purchase price for this site. That is what we are turning our back on, and including continued ongoing revenue for years. This property, and I heard Councilman Whitaker talk about if EPA changes, that's a poor excuse. That property has a covenant on it that goes with the property. That EPA covenant cannot be modified by the Supreme Court or anybody else. It's a covenant. If that covenant changes for some reason with the court, then the city can come back and make changes. But what the partners that we have here, Safe Store, has indicated, and the architects in there, they're going to make sure that property stays safe. And the city has a responsibility to continue to monitor it along with EPA. If anything does happen, Councilman Whitaker or anybody else that has that concern, it will be addressed. So I don't want that to be a red herring to be used as a reason not to support this project. Remember, this is a $500,000 project today for a city that needs the revenue, and it's an ongoing revenue producer for years to come. Mind you, I think that property was vacated in 1990. I was wrong. So 32 years that property is set vacant. We don't have people knocking down our door to come in and use this property. This is an opportunity that shouldn't be passed up for any reason. So I'm hoping, even though you may think you have made up your mind, I'm asking you to reconsider and think about it, and hopefully we can get this property and this project moving forward. Thank you.
We're going to let this next speaker come, and then you will have the floor. Sir, you have 5 minutes. If you would let us know your address and your name.
Yes, my address is 6017 College Drive. My name is Chris Lindsley. And in regards to this project and Don Scott.
Sir, if you would please speak into the microphone and lift it up, yes, because we couldn't hear you.
Okay, in regards to this project and what Don Scott is talking about, and people talking about the military. My family is military also. My family is all naval officers, naval intelligence, CIA, fighter pilots, etc. We grew up in this area. My father, Kenneth Lindsay, who's also a deacon at Mount Carmel Church, He helped renovate the majority of the houses in this city. And I'm wondering what Don Scott's interest is in this project. I think it's something personal because I called this office when I was,
Sir?
when I needed
Sir,
help.
that's not germane to what we're
Okay.
talking about, what his interest is.
Okay.
That is not germane. We're talking about a use permit for a property. That's not germane what his interest is.
Okay, I got you. Okay, so there are other uses that could be used, that the property could be utilized for, such as automotive storage yards, you know? It's safer than, you know, people storing their clothes and stuff there.
Please,
you know?
please, we need to have order in the chamber. Thank you. Sir,
So-
please continue.
So I went down to zoning when I needed property to move to, and they told me certain properties couldn't be rezoned, and then properties were rezoned after I was illegally evicted because I had no place to move my stuff to.
Sir,
So
sir.
that property, I
sir.
inquired about that property also.
Sir, it is not germane to what the item is. You're speaking on other items about other things. I've asked you to stay on.
Okay.
This will be the last time. If you do not speak to the item, sir, you will have to sit down.
Have a nice day.
You too, sir.
Let me
Ma'am,
take
if you would state your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
Pamela Anstead, 1919 Atlanta Avenue. So what I would like to speak about is we spend a lot of time on these items, and the last time I was here, I ended up leaving because we was pretty much wasting time on these items. Don Scott got his point across. The city councilmen's got their points across. That's something that y'all need to work on between Don Scott and y'all, and let's end that and let's move on to the next item. Please.
As a public work session, because it is a public hearing, we have to give citizens the opportunity to come forward. And if no one comes forward, what we will do, we will close that item, and then we will move forward with a vote. That is the process. So as long as folks will come forward and speak, we have to allow for that to take place.
Okay, I understand that, but I'm asking the citizens of Portsmouth, the point has already been made. The item has already been submitted. All we're gonna do is sit here and go back and forth all night. We need to move on to our next item. Can we move on to some more important things? I mean, the storage unit is important. Believe me, I know exactly what it is. It's on Effingham Street. It's okay.
Ma'am?
Ma'am? You was probably younger when that contamination was around there. You were very young during that day. You probably wasn't even born. But I'm sure some of your family members were living in Washington Park during that time. So look, let's just move on to something that you might not know nothing about. I mean, it's contaminated. We all know that. Paul, you know, it was contaminated. Well, let's move on to something more important, please.
Thank you, ma'am.
Why are we gonna keep going back and forth with this one storage unit?
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, if you would come forward and state your name and address. Once again, this item is for the public hearing on the storage unit that is being proposed and the permit.
Good afternoon to each and every last one of you. On 121 Price Street. And also, I just come here to speak on the issue with the city councilman about this proposal. The people has spoken. Y'all can hear them in the audience. As city councilmen, at some point, our voice has to matter. You know, I know it's 5 of y'all, plus a vice mayor and a mayor, but y'all work for us. And y'all supposed to be up here acting in our best interest. If you can hear the audience and the crowd of people asking y'all to allow a beautiful storage unit to come in and be an investment in Portsmouth, Virginia, I think personally, y'all should take y'all personal feelings out of it. Let's get our head back into the game let's regroup, let's start over, let's do good business for Portsmouth, Virginia, and let's keep our own personal opinions and how we feel about one another out of it, and do what's best for the citizens of Portsmouth, Virginia. And I also want to state that Don Scott is only a lawyer, and he has no interest in this case on Rhodium Life.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, if you would come forward, state your name and address, please, and you will have 5 minutes.
Hi, my name is Nikia Miller. I live at 910 Quash in Hampton.
Please speak
Okay.
to the microphone.
So-
Thank you.
2 things. Number 1, the property that this storage facility is is being proposed to be placed on, isn't there a fire station on that property? So what's the problem with this being placed there if there's no problem with the fire station being there? Secondly, because the fire station is there, there are already certain environmental caveats that have to be taking place because the fire station is on that lot. So just because of that, that's going to create more things that have to be done in order to ensure that there is not a continued environmental problem and that the city of Portsmouth can have another storage facility. Thirdly, let's say an environmental problem does come up. Wouldn't it be the property owner and the city manager's job to work together to come up with a plan to remediate any issue that exists with that property? Isn't that supposed to be in your level of expertise, Ms. Chapman?
Ma'am? Ma'am?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, just
I'm
stick
just
to
saying.
the point, please.
The city manager and the property owner should be able to work together to resolve anything that goes outside of the covenant that already exists on the property to make this work, to garner tax revenue for the city of Portsmouth and lay this to rest. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you would like to speak on this particular item, please state your name and address, sir, and you will have 5 minutes.
Mark Gadildi-Gutrovsky, P.O. Box 50141, Portsmouth 23703. Mayor, council, and other neighbors. As somebody who has spent the last half of my life involved with environmental issues as a volunteer activist, I can attest to the seriousness of the concerns that 2 council members have raised. Lead is something that is an environmental hazard, and it's a hazard to humankind. So all due diligence must be taken in dealing with a site such as this one. The discovery of the problem took longer than it should have, and the involvement of the Environmental Protection Agency did not come about at the time contemporaneous with the discovery of the problem. A lot of people's lives were affected by exposure to lead. But moving forward, the environmental protection over several decades has used good science and technological know-how to deal with problems that would have been irremediable in the past. One example is nearby, a site where dredging is going on from the Elizabeth River to deal with contaminants that have been longstanding there. So we are mindful that this problem exists. We are mindful of the consequences it has for human health and for the environment in general. And we have found ways of mitigating these issues. One of them, as a previous speaker noted, was by putting a concrete seal over the surface after the lead has been removed. This project would do something similar to what the fire station did. So there is a containment medium being placed over the site to prevent the spread of lead into the surrounding community and to prevent it affecting the people who will be using the storage facility. True enough, as another speaker said, people are putting their stuff there, but people are moving in and out of the structure and on and over the site. So it's not just stuff. There is the potential for personal exposure if it isn't done right. I believe that the current EPA, with people appointed by the current administration, will be conscientious about enforcing the existing rules and using best science and technology to achieve the desired goal. I believe it is possible in this day and age to build a structure that will bring tax revenue to the city and still afford protection to the neighbors and to the users of that facility. So weighing all these aspects of the project, I would urge you to approve it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing, and anyone who wishes to come and speak on this particular matter, you can come forward, state your name, address, and you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Jim Burt. I work for W&A Engineering. I'm also very closely affiliated with Safe Store, which is the applicant for this project.
Could you please speak into the mic? Yeah, pull it up.
Turn the mic up.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. I am at 355 Anita Street, Athens, Georgia. That's where I work, and that's where W&A is. There's a few things. Is it possible to put a site plan up? Or are we going to keep with this? No problem. We have a very brown site. There we go. There are a few things I want to point out because lots have been said. And since I've studied this site for more than 2 years, I thought maybe I could lend some information that's helpful to this. First of all, this site is in a hole. If you were to pour 1,000 gallons on the property, it couldn't run off anywhere. We have to connect to the drainage system that runs across the property. And what runs across the property is 2 double 48-inch box culverts, which splits the property in 2. So you can't build a really big, nice project on here. You have to do what you can do on one side. The other part of this is that it's in a floodplain, and that the building has to sit on 7 feet of fill just to be able to get us up to the point where we're above the floodplain standards for the local area. And so when you think about it, with the soft soils, the groundwater, the floodplain, the fact that there's an EPA control based on covenants that we have to adhere to. We can't break the covenants, and nor do we want to, because there's a lot of liability involved in that. We don't want people getting sick. So anything we do, we have to cap. We have to put in 3 foot of soil with a warning barrier underneath in case someone was to grade on there, and they would have a warning barrier says contamination. So on top of that, we're going to be putting a building and pavement. We're making a situation that is very tough better. And I appreciate, the last thing I would say is that we do like the idea of being in a community. And that is something historically Safe Store has been involved with. And what they do every time is they donate a unit per floor on every one of these to, and usually the fire marshal or a police chief or somebody has control over those. So if somebody's house burns down or there's something happens and they need stuff to be able to put somewhere free of charge, we provide that for them. We do that. That's not a stipulation from the Planning Commission. That's not a stipulation from anybody else but what we do. So, that's who we are. We'd like to be part of this community. We would like to do a good job here, and we want everybody to be healthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
Mr. Baldwin, does this project present any health and safety issues?
Not that I'm aware of, if it's developed properly, no.
I worked with the Housing Authority during the time of the lead, so I'm very aware of what happened. And I do know that it's dangerous. Now, you can have my vote if at the completion of this project that the EPA comes in and deem it safe for folk to come back and forth on. Now, other than that, count me out. But I'll consent to it. But because of the nature of what we're doing, again, at the conclusion that they come in and deem it safe to operate. If you can get that for me, Mr. Scott, then I'm readily going to give you my vote. But other than that, I have to not look at the building, not worry about the money. Health and safety is the main issue that I'm confronted with as 1/7 of the representative of our city.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, do you want to speak on this public hearing item? Yes. Okay, if you would come forward and state your name and address. And afterwards, Mr. Scott, we would ask that you complete your comments if there's some that you want to make, okay? Thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Regina Butt, and I live in the 200 block. My name is Regina Butt, and I live in the 200 block of Glasgow Street. I'm delighted to see a full crowd here. I've been coming to the city council meetings occasionally for a good while now, and there used to be a handful of people here. This place is packed. It's been packed recently, and it's because the citizens are so upset and disturbed about what's going on. So to address what we're addressing right now, I'm confused because I got the impression that the site had been cleaned up. And then I got a lot of information about how they would put the cement down, it would contain the contaminants. And then I heard from one of the city council members that it would affect children, but it's not a place for children to play or be. but children happen to love to play at an empty field, especially near a firehouse, because they're enthralled with fire engines and things. It's a great place for children to come and play. So that disturbs me terribly. The city council needs to listen to these people. Look at them and take your own agendas out of it. And just for clarity, if one of you vote for approving it after it's done, that doesn't make any sense. You must vote for it tonight because the EPA has taken care of it and approved it. So we are really hoping that you'll come through on what you just said, that you would vote for it. I must have misunderstood. I apologize. But that's how I understood it. The $500,000 that we will get, that the city will get, will help us all. And I just hope that we don't look back and think that we really needed it for any other lawsuit that may come up in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
Yeah. Just want to address, I've heard from Attorney Scott as well as from one of the other speakers about covenants. And I just want to say that we wouldn't even be having this discussion if covenants had been kept. And so for those of us who, again, are aware, it's not so much of the covenant that is there, it's always about, is it going to be kept? And if anybody ought to know about covenants being broken, we could look right within our city and within our history. And so I'm not convinced just because of the covenant, because the persons who will ultimately have to interpret, enforce, or act on it, we don't know how that could go. And I'm not willing to take that risk.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Woodard, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, Mr. Baldwin, would you have any information on how this particular property was marketed for development or future use?
No, I would not have any information on that.
Sir, unfortunately, I don't know how that's relevant to what's germane to the point that we're making.
Well, it's been vacant for since 1990, so I just want to make sure that we were working actively on getting quality projects to this area. Not to say that this is not, but I just wanted to see what we were doing to make sure that we were putting something on this particular property. So I think it does have something to do with this particular project.
Well, sir,
if PRHA could, they let us know if anyone contacted them about it, or what? I mean, could they come up here and present?
I would say that we have had an applicant come forward, and they have put forward a proposal that was vetted by our planning commission, and so that is what we have on the table now. So if we could move this discussion.
Well, I'm the planning liaison, so I'm very aware of what you're saying, but I just wanted to see if we have any similar projects.
If you would just give me a moment, I understand that, but we have this project on the floor, and I'm aware that you're a member as a liaison of the planning commission. However, this is the project that's on the floor at this time. So we need to proceed with the project that is before us, and that is what we will need to do. Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
Again, I hope I can make it a bit clearer this time. I am prepared to vote for the project, but I would like for our attorney and our folk to get together, and at the completion of this project, that it be deemed safe. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to vote when the project's completed, because it can't start until I vote. So I want this done before I vote, so we'll probably need to table this. This is a health and safety issue, and I don't care, you got 100,000 folk in here, this is the right thing to do, as far as I'm concerned. So now, we can table it, we can get together and get the language together and ensure that this is gonna be a safe project for our citizens.
This is a public hearing, and this is the last call. If there's anyone who wishes to come and speak, if not, we will move the conversation forward. I will close the public meeting. If you would state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes, ma'am.
Yes, my name is Renee Wicks. I live at 2312 Victory Boulevard. I guess I'm a little confused as well. Like someone just said, if I'm not mistaken, that fire station is on the exact same property that Washington Park was on. And I have a little brother that just retired from the Portsmouth Fire Department after 27 years. So that makes me concerned as to his health. Is their firefighters, is their health an issue or a concern of yours before that fire station was put there? So I'm just still confused. So I would hope that you all would reconsider and know that it would be safe.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, if you would like to come forward, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Philip Page. I'm actually with the Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Our offices are at 3116 South Street. I just briefly wanted to mention in response to Council's question about marketing the property, we have aggressively marketed the property. Some property will market ourselves. This actually, we engaged a commercial broker to make sure that, I think to your point, sir, everything was done to make sure that the property was put out to all those who would be interested in it. In addition to it, a lot has been said, but one other thing I'd like to mention is that there's an easement running through the middle of this property. The easement actually belongs to the city of Portsmouth, and that has prevented a lot of, good retail projects from coming along. And so with storage and with the configuration, I think that's happened, we do feel that this is probably the best possible outcome and would ask council to approve it. The last thing I would just like to say with respect to Safe Store and with respect to the concerns, the environmental concerns that have been raised, Safe Store did a huge amount of due diligence in the first several months of this project. They personally worked with me. I dug, I can't imagine, countless, boxes of research, historic research for the project. They looked at, they sent their experts down. I'm not proclaiming to be an expert on the EPA or what they have determined, although they do support this project, but I just wanted to at least alleviate whatever concerns that Safe Store did take the environmental concerns seriously, as did PRHA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. And we have exhausted this matter at this point, and so we will allow one more speaker to come forward. We will allow one more speaker to come forward, and then we will close the public meeting.
Leon Hammonds, 809 Bowie Court. Remember, you got the police department right behind the fire department. A large building right behind you, got horses behind there too. So whatever you decide on the EPA or anything else, you got the police department there, and they're not complaining, and I don't think anybody else has gotten canceled yet from there.
Thank you, sir. Are there any more speakers to come speak to this public hearing? Seeing none, this public hearing is now closed. And Madam Clerk, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Okay, all right.
Move for approval.
Yes, for it.
Is there a question, Madam City Attorney?
I just wanted to clarify something on the rules here for everyone with respect to, we are looking at the zoning amendment Z2202 right now. They have talked about UP 22, which isn't before council, but it does address a number, that is the use permit We're addressing the zoning permit right now. The use permit has the proffers that the entity or the applicant makes with respect to compliance with the things that council has brought forth. There is also a provision in every application when they dig at a Superfund site that requires a special permit from the city. And this is under a special section of the city code that addresses the EPA's getting an advance notice of every project. And so there is some involvement of the EPA. Also, I just want to remind council that proffers cannot be amended once it is has had a public hearing. And so any addition that is being requested would not be appropriate at this time. And so taking all that into consideration, I wanted to make sure these legal points were known by my counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a motion and a second on the floor. And Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Barnes,
No.
Mr. Battle,
No.
Mrs. Lucas-Burke.
Yes.
Mr. Moody,
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker,
No.
Mr. Woodard,
No.
Mayor Glover.
Yes.
This item fails by a vote of 4-3.
And let me just be clear on my order of agenda items. If this item fails, then we do not take up the next item.
That's correct.
Okay, very good. Our next item then is item C, UP-22-10. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the agenda item and resolution we are considering pertaining to this item?
Resolution granting the request of Timmons Group for a use permit for a 106-unit multifamily dwelling development on approximately 7.3 acres of land at the density of 14.5 dwelling units per acre. The property is located at 1 Lexington Drive and is in the multifamily urban residential zoning district. The future land use map of the Bill 1 Portsmouth Comprehensive Plan designates this property as multifamily residential. The property is owned by the Portsmouth Redevelopment Housing Authority. Planning Commission approves with conditions. And the resolution reads, resolution regarding a use permit to the Timmons Group to develop and operate a multifamily dwelling development having approximately 106 units at 1 Lexington Drive.
Thank you, ma'am. Is the applicant present? Please come forward, state your name and address, and sir, you will have 10 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening again, members of City Council. My name is Philip Page with Portsmouth Redevelopment and Housing Authority. Be really brief. We just wanted to introduce this use permit and just let council know, or even remind council, that this is part of a little bit over 5-year redevelopment plan. In 2016, the Redevelopment and Housing Authority, along with City Council, approved the demolition of Lincoln Park. It had 178 units. Since then, since 2016, we have demolished all of those units, of course, relocated every tenant, every family, and we started back in phase 1 to redevelop 72 townhomes. And so right now, Lexington Place, 72 townhomes are on the site. There was already a use permit that was approved, but in conversation with our residents, talking to the Resident Advisory Board, of course, our board, and even community meetings we've had, we did decide to change what had been approved and just wanted to present that to you. And so that's the reason that we're back for a use permit. We really want to address particularly safety issues, but the issues that came up from the city. So with that, I will point to Andre Blakely. He is the developer of record for the project, and he'll give the rest of the presentation.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Glover, Vice Mayor Barnes, City Council members, City staff, and leadership. My name's Andre Blakely. I'm president of TRG Community Development, a subsidiary of TRG, the Richmond Group of Companies, a 30-year-old plus full-service investment and real estate development firm. As one of the largest purchasers of the low-income housing tax credit and the 7th largest apartment owner in the nation, we really try to apply a long-term lens to every execution, and especially our partnerships, public-private partnerships with public housing authorities across the country. We're holistic in our approach. with an eye towards every single community aspect, and we believe PHA redevelopment represents a window of opportunity to change and transform communities through collaborative methods and through conversation with our partners and key stakeholders. I'm lastly would like to say that we're very grateful for the opportunity and the invitation into this community and honored to be here. Again, this is a capacity that I work in across the country. Not only are we suffering right now in the midst of a housing crisis, we also still are charged with redeveloping public housing that was poorly set up to replace that with quality housing that folks can be proud of. Happy to address any questions that you might have.
Do I have any questions from my colleagues on council? Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor then. Councilman Woodard.
Yes, is it Mr. Blakely?
Blakely, yes,
sir.
Blakely.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
What is the minority participation plan as part of your development?
Great question. That is something that we take very seriously with a lot of focus, and we need to be strategic about it. Although we have various in-house capacities, we're vertically integrated with in-house design, architecture, construction. We don't self-perform those services. We always look to hire local. So we'll have a solicitation process and advertise for GC for this project. And a part of the criteria will be local inclusion and making sure that the folks that are working on this site look like the folks that live in that community.
So you don't have any type of aspirational goals or anything within your contracts? Or is it a master development contract?
I have it's a development rights agreement between the Richmond Group and PRHA.
Okay, so you don't have any type of aspirational goals within that for minority
I think there may be
participation?
some very limited goals. We always try to overachieve in this area. Typically what you see is the minimum, 10%. Again, our goal in every community is to overachieve in that regard, and we do that through local contractor marketing. Before we put once we get construction documents, we start gathering with contractors and marketing that project and educating them on the project. We've done that in several communities. What we learned during that process is a lot of contractors are qualified to be minority contractors. They just don't know how to do the paperwork. Some contractors are afraid because of the scale and the size. So we talk about ways to partner and ways to break the project up so that they can apply and qualify for the project.
Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Well, I found one of my answers right here in your description, but just wanted to know what was the canopy that's located on your example right here. It's a canopy, like it's a
yeah,
playhouse.
that's a carport area,
Okay.
so that if someone is bringing groceries or if they need to clean out their car and it's raining, it's come to be one of our greatest amenities that we add to our multifamily and senior development sites.
Okay. Oh, so this is the side view of this actual example.
Correct.
Okay.
You're referring to the bottom photo?
Yes.
Councilman?
Yes.
Did you have some comments to make, sir?
Yes, to the previous question, just regarding minority participation, I just wanted to add that HUD does not do a great job, I guess, of letting us set specific targets. And so I know a lot of the response is really what we try to do and what we want to do. I just wanted to give you kind of some information that just we had from 2021. So all of our efforts, we contracted out about $7.5 million. The percentage of that was to minority-owned firms or minority firms was 31%, a little over $2 million. And then the total percentage that was minority and small businesses was 56%. And so I'm proud of our record, although, again, the answer might fall short as far as being able to give you specific targets, but I think we've done what I think is in the spirit of your question. Thank you.
Right. And
You have the floor, sir.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Page, and I hope that as you speak to that you don't have specific targets, which we know you can't have specific targets. That's why we were mentioning aspirational goals. But I hope that's something that council doesn't have to ask questions like that on development, that in the future that information will be presented to us.
May I address that, Councilman? We will, before we close on a financial transaction, we will put in place some form of an inclusionary plan. We've done that in other communities, so we're very used to and equipped in providing that information prior to any financial closing on the transaction.
Right, and my concern is that, you know, we always talk about how beautiful the development is going to be and working with the city, but we also have to make sure that we're taking care of the equity. And one of the things that have been overlooked when we have these multi-million-dollar projects coming to the city is minority contracting. And so I hope that that's really an issue that council should have a little more control over, making sure those projects. But I appreciate your comments.
Mr. Battles, sir, you have the floor.
At the completion of this project, can you give us verifiable information that will let us know the minority participation? And let me say it again, because a lot of times folk don't get what I be saying. Verifiable information.
Absolutely. So we expect that to be its own separate tenet of the development process. So we'll have a Section 3 local hiring compliance person that will review the payrolls weekly, provide reports monthly. If we're falling short, we don't want to find that out at the 11th hour when we're putting the final nail in the stud. We want to find that out early so we can react and be proactive.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Other questions?
Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. So anyone who has not signed up, or if you did not sign up, you may come forward and speak to this public hearing at this time. If you would just provide your name and address, you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Donna Sy, and I live at 3104 Garland Drive in Portsmouth. Okay, let's just look at that statue. All right, just built straight across, not in a circle area. Where is the swimming pool? Where is the shelter so that folks can have a cookout? Where are the athletic stuff, you know, that I guess y'all gonna have children there. If you're not, that's fine, just have the statues and, you know, let the folks just come and go as they please. But if you haven't got anything in there, like London Oaks has nothing in it for the folks, then you're gonna have the same thing. We need something in there that's gonna be for the people, so they can have relationships and working together as a family unit with things to do. So if nothing is scheduled to put in there for activities, I'm sure y'all are going to vote for it. Go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you wish to speak on this particular item, you may come forward, state your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Debbie Morton, and I'm from Port Norfolk. And I just want to say, aside from not having trees and playgrounds, this is another opportunity to make a little money for us folks in Portsmouth. However, the one thing that really irks my soul is the fact that your biggest problem with this is how are we going to help the minority? Let me tell you something. I'm sitting beside this woman back here, and I'm no better than her, and she's no better than me, and my skin is white and hers is brown. I've been to dinner with the mayor, and he's no better than me, and I'm no better than him. And I've been to dinner with the woman in South Norfolk who I bought groceries for when the pandemic was going because she couldn't afford them. But you're trying to keep us divided by talking about minority and not minority. We are all one body back here. Y'all can't get it together, but we are all one body back here. And you won't listen to us because the 7 of you can't get it together. The 4 of you won't get it together with the rest of them that are trying to do right by this city. So when we get y'all off of here, we're going to start working for the city, right, Mayor? That's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Whitaker, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah. There are some of us who...
Please, ma'am, have your seat, please.
There are some of us who are a little more conscious, and I know that the data that has been presented to the city, as well as the school board, is that when it comes to minority representation and contracting, that it has been a significant underrepresentation, underutilization. Now, for those of you who think that when you speak to equity, that causes division, I think that when you are silent on equity, that is an injustice. And so I make no apology for raising a real issue, because these are tax dollars that come from all of the community, and the community should be represented fairly when it comes to how those dollars are spent. And because I raised that issue, that does not mean that I am looking down upon any other group. That just means that I think we should be contracting in a fair manner. And I think anyone would want fair contracting. And so when we look at how some of these businesses in Portsmouth have had contracts for years, particularly white businesses and white contractors, and how minority contractors have not been able to get those same types of contracts. And we see the impact on generational wealth, ability to raise families, buy homes, and not be renters. All of those things play into account. And so I think that I'm right on target when I speak about the disparities that exist, not in this, just in this city, but in many cities. And I'm not going to hold my peace on it.
Thank you, sir. Sir, would you state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
My name is Emmanuel Ferguson, 1406 South Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. Well, we got these new houses coming in, and I'm from Swanson Home, and we had to move, and I moved to Westbury Cottage, and we disabled, because I've been fighting council for a minute.
Yes, sir.
But if the people coming in, putting in new houses, how could we afford, like when we go to the bathroom, we got to pay for the sewage. You know, a lot of people disabled got to go to the bathroom, but we can't pay for that sewage. It's high. Because I paid a sewer bill last month, now I got to pay another sewer bill. And then I got to pay water bill. Because back in the day when we were growing up, everybody pulled together. You know, house door was paying the bill, helping the poor people. Because we still got poor people out here. And we all need help. You know, so when we get the people to bring the houses in, they need to look out and try to, you know, put something into the system. Like, well, we'll pay this to help somebody, you know, or we'll do this to help somebody. You know, we got to help one another. You know, 'cause it's hard. For me, I just get $1,000 for 2 people, me and my wife, and I can barely pay my water bill. I can barely pay my light bill. My light bill just constantly run in my house, and this is supposed to be a new project. And I put it on off, and I can just keep running. So I hope when the people come in and build new houses, I hope they put something into it to help the people in the houses. Because we all need help today. You know, we can't do it by ourselves. You know, we got to love one another. We got to help each other. Because like I said, I came from Swanson Home. I almost died out Swanson Home. I was in Swanson Home 4 months with no heat. And they gave me heaters, you know, and I made it through the Holy Ghost and grace of God brought me through. But I kept praying and kept praying, so they got me out Westbury. And like I say, you know, it's hard, you know, paying these bills, water bill. Now, I didn't have water bill.
Sir, I certainly hear you, and we certainly understand where you're coming from. but we have to be germane to the use permit. That's not germane to the use permit, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay? We
Thank you.
appreciate your comments, and we thank you for coming forward and letting us know.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mayor
sir.
Glover.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am?
My name is Melissa Williams, and I reside on Carver Circle in the Douglas Park area of Portsmouth. I do agree with some of the points that were made by the residents about this project being of some type of substance and use to the residents who are going to occupy it, something that they can get something tangible out of it. I also agree with what Dr. Whitaker was saying as far as the fair disbursement of when it comes to contracts, because I don't know if the people that was clapping in opposition to what you were saying know that the poverty rate in this area is absolutely ridiculous. And when it comes to minority-based contracts, they're often overlooked or overshadowed. And that,
Ma'am,
yes.
I understand where you're going with this,
Mhm.
but it's not germane to the use permit. What is
Okay.
germane to the use permit? This is a use permit.
Okay.
And the use permit is talking about this project.
Okay.
I understand where you're going with, and no one's disagreeing with your point, but it's not germane to the use permit.
Okay, so I'll skip over that point and I'll get to my
Okay.
next point.
Thank you very much.
To what the gentleman that were up here, the question that you asked them about, I guess, something about figures. Before you guys vote on this, could you make sure that everything is, every T is crossed and every I is dotted before you just agree to allow this project to take place? So that we will make sure that there will be no fine print or something that goes against what it's supposed to be for once it's up there. I just want to make sure that things that are being put into our community, that the residents of the community are going to get the best out of the things that are being put into our community.
Thank you very
Thank
much. And Mr. Baldwin, just for the community's edification, if you could speak to that this did go through a process?
Yes, sir. This, in fact, has been through the process a couple of times, as was noted by the applicants. This does go through the city use permit process, and you have before you, the plans that have been submitted by the applicant. Once city council adopts them, assuming you do, those become the plans that the staff looks at, and when they're built, we make sure that what gets built is reflective of what city council approved. And in addition to that, we make sure that it complies with all other city code requirements.
Thank you, sir. And ma'am, if you would come forward, and if you want to speak to this public hearing item, you will have to indicate your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes.
My name is Rhoda Young, 1035 West 25th Street. With the youth permit, we just allowed $500,000 to walk out the door of starving residents of Portsmouth, Virginia.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
Is there a representative from the Housing Authority here? Can you come up? Is it okay, Mr. Mayor? He comes up. I want to ask him.
Yes, sir. You are free to ask him a question, sir.
I kind of failed at this task. When you're building area, condos, or what have you, you have to put the amenities that go along with families. And are there any in this project, like a community room, recreational area, outside recreational area?
Well, first, this is going to be a senior building.
Oh, okay. Well, what amenities do you have for the seniors? Seniors.
Ladies and gentlemen, we need to have order in the chamber. Mr. Battle has the floor. Mr. Battle, sir, please continue.
Seniors have needs as well. what amenities do you have for seniors?
It would be the same amenities in place like we have at Phoebe Square. We got the community room, we got the library, we got the exercise room. It would be a holistic senior building that anyone would enjoy living in.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Once again, this is a public hearing. If you wish to come and speak to this public hearing item, please come forward. You will have to indicate your name and address, and you will have 5 minutes. Seeing none, this public hearing is closed. We are in need of a motion and a second.
Move to approve.
Second. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. We have now come to the item on the agenda, City Manager's Report, item 22-210. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance that we are considering pertaining to this item?
Ordinance accepting a Shelter Plus Care grant in the amount of $569,041 from the Department of Housing and Urban Development and appropriating said funds in the FY 2023 Grants Fund for use by the Department of Behavioral Health Care Services to provide supportive services to chronically homeless and at-risk Portsmouth residents.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. Item 22-211. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
Ordinance accepting a public safety answering point grant in the amount of $3,000 from the Virginia 911 Services Board and appropriating said sum in the FY 2023 Grants Fund for Emergency Communications Unit Training.
Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Motion.
Adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. Item 22-212. And Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance we are considering pertaining to this item?
Ordinance accepting for life funding in the amount of $78,791.44 from the Virginia Department of Health Office of Emergency Medical Services and appropriating said amount in the FY 2023 Grants Fund for the use by the Department of Fire Rescue and Emergency Services.
Thank you, ma'am. Council members, we are in need of a motion and a second.
Adoption.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. We have now come to the item on the agenda, new business, item 22-213. And Vice Mayor Barnes and Dr. Whitaker, are there any appointments to bring forward for consideration?
Yes. Want to move to appoint our new city manager, Tanya Chapman, to a few boards. I'm going to name them, read the list. It's Hampton Roads Regional Jail Authority, Community Policy and Management Team, Transportation District Commission of Hampton Roads as the alternative, Hampton Roads Planning District Commission, Newport Development Authority, Southside Network Authorities Project Committee Representative, Regional Broadband Authority member. Oh, and I'm sorry, and also Daniel Jones to the Regional Broadband Authority as the alternate.
Thank you, sir. Now, we need a motion and a second on that, or we just
Second.
go forward with the appointment?
Second.
Second, okay. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Vice Mayor Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Battle.
Yes.
Mrs. Lucasberg.
Yes.
Mr. Moody.
Yes.
Dr. Whitaker.
Yes.
Mr. Woodard.
Yes.
Mayor Glover.
Yes. We have now come to item 22-214. Council members, do you have any items to submit? Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
I just want to remind my colleagues that the discussion that we just had pertaining to the minority contract, and want to remind them that we passed an ordinance last year, I believe it's 2-168 or 12-168, but we passed an ordinance that gave the city manager authority, and one of those areas dealt with minority contracting across political subdivisions, which include EDA and PRHA. And I would hope that as we move forward, that we will not have to have the questions that are being raised during these presentations, that it will become a part of the reports that we receive prior to the presentations being made. I think that that is something that is pertinent, and that is why that ordinance was created, so that we could have some direct input with the city manager over the issue of contracting. And so I hope that we will have that as a practice moving forward, consistent with our policy.
Thank you, sir. And if also with my recollection of that, I thought there was something that the city attorney had come back to us with, that the manager, unfortunately, there were some limitations to having that type of oversight. So if you could bring that back as well. I know that it was discussed, and I know that there was some limitations in terms of what the manager's oversight could be in those matters as it relates to contracting.
We will, I'll have my office look into that and report back.
Because I thought we put together a committee, to avoid the issues that the manager might have. And I think that we appointed Dr. Whitaker and also Councilwoman Lisa Lucas Burke to that committee.
Yeah, that was for.
Was that for something different?
That was for the disparity study. But
okay.
But Mayor, you raise a good point as far as it being reported back. Can we have that added onto our public work session agenda for discussion on that item? And I don't know the ordinance right off the top of my head, but we passed two that relates to minority contracting, and particularly with the manager's authority.
Okay, we will have an analysis of that for the next report back.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Councilman Battle, sir, you have the floor.
There was a state ordinance that gave the city manager the power to intervene, I think. So if you can get with, I'll get with you and we'll get that on.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Woodard, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. This is for City Manager Chapman. Could we get a report back on a increase in parking around the Brighton area on Century and Chestnut Street? Center, okay, Center and Center Ave and Chestnut Street. It's been a lot of complaints from the residents over there about additional parking and cars just within their driveway. So if you can give us a report back on what we can do to limit the traffic in that area. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Are there any other items submitted by council members? Councilman Moody, sir, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. This past week, the mayor, myself, and Councilman Woodard went on a reset walk out at London Oaks. And London Oaks is privately owned. So my question, and this question is to staff, being privately owned, I saw a lot of maintenance issues in exterior, the need of painting, the need of repairs, in other rental properties when units change, rental inspections have to take place. I would like for staff to get back with us on a record of those inspections, whether they're being performed or not. And also, I think it'd be good to know what type of maintenance has been going on at London Oaks. Also, the citizens expressed concern that the fence, when there's a issue, whether it be a fire, a shooting, apparently there's only one way out. So there's some things there, especially being privately owned, that I think we'd be remiss in not addressing, and they need to be addressed. And we need to be grounded in facts on what they're doing to maintain the property there. The other thing, and this is for staff, I'd like an update on what's going to be done with the above-ground water tanks, water towers. Every time I pass those, I get angry that our name is on the tower. And I'd like to have an update when we're going to start addressing the repairs and the painting of those towers. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Mr. Battle, sir, you have the floor.
The water towers were scheduled to be done when the second wave of COVID funding came in, and that was per the past city manager. So it might be easier for you to get to. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Couple of items I have. I want to thank the community of Craddock for hosting their 103rd 4th of July celebration. Many of my colleagues and our city manager were present to celebrate with the community of Craddock, and it brought a lot of people out and together, and it was wonderful to see all of the folks in our community celebrating the 4th of July. In addition to that, I had the privilege of going to the Renaissance this afternoon, and I want to thank Dr. Alan McFarland of Calvary Evangelical Church and Baptist Fellowship Association for hosting their organization's conference here in the city of Portsmouth. They were really pleased. A lot of folks came from a lot of places throughout the United States, and they were excited to be in the city of Portsmouth. And one thing I wanted to leave them with when I spoke with them was Portsmouth is for people. Portsmouth is for people, all people. So thank you for that. We have now come to item 22-216, non-agenda speakers. And Madam Clerk, would you please read our speaker statement?
City council rules require a limit of up to 5 minutes to speak. As you approach the speaker's podium, you will notice a timer. At the beginning of your 5 minutes, you will see a green light. 4 minutes into your remarks, you will notice a yellow light. At the end of 5 minutes, you will see a red light, hear a beep, and we ask that you conclude your comments at that time. While speakers have an opportunity to address council on matters of public concern, all comments should be made in a manner that respects the seriousness of the forum and should not be made in a belligerent, sarcastic, or demeaning fashion. All remarks shall be directed to the city council as a body rather than to any particular member of the city council, staff, or the audience, and should be limited to matters that only this Portsmouth City Council can influence. A speaker that fails to observe this basic rule of decorum will be deemed out of order and not allowed to conclude her comments.
Thank you, ma'am. And just to reiterate, when you come before council to address us, please do not address individuals on the dais. If you wish to address us about a concern, please address that concern as in the interest of all who sit up here. So individual names, calling folks out, that will not be tolerated. We have to respect the chamber, and we have to respect each other. With that being said, our first speaker is Mr. Leon Hammonds. Please state your name and address, sir, and you have 5 minutes.
Name is Leon Hammonds, 809 Bowie Court. Good evening, Mayor, council members.
Evening, sir.
I feel that our council members have not lived up to their oath. They're supposed to be a member of the city of Portsmouth, but you don't act like it. You do not live up to your oath, and you should be living up to your oath if you live here. I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what the problem is, but I hope that you can get it straight. Each of you, well, not, I wouldn't say each of you, but the majority of you do not want to answer questions that the public put forth to you. I don't know why. If you're elected, that's your duty. Now, just because you're elected, you're not above the public, because we are the ones that put you in there. So understand that we are the ones going to take you out. Now, one thing for sure, there was a process by you being elected, and there's always a process. Now, you all can do the hiring of any person below you, the city manager, anybody else that you want to hire, but there's a process. You don't bypass that process, because when you bypass the process, you cause chaos. That's right, chaos. And I don't like the idea of chaos, because one thing about it, you're not going to be there forever. And the person that you hire is not going to be there forever. The next group of people that come in is going to have to follow suit. Hiring the wrong person or the trainee for the person for the job, you are creating a Pandora's box. When the box is open, you can't put it back. Understand that right there. See, and the thing about it though is that you say, well, you have the right. Yes, you have the right, but you have the right. Don't be doing the wrong thing. You want to be elected, and I hope from now on the citizens of Portsmouth ask you the questions. Why did you do that? And if you don't answer, then you don't have to answer, because your name will not be checked off. And I am for one that will not check your name off. I voted, but I have sat back and been lazy as far as coming down here. But that won't happen no more. You all have stopped doing your job like you should be doing your job. And I've noticed some attitudes on the city council. And one thing about it though, if you have a problem with another person, you're supposed to go to that person and talk it out. Not show it here. Not have a block vote on everything the person says the sky is blue, no, it's green. That's not right. You're supposed to be voting for Portsmouth, not yourselves, not against another person. Not against another person. You're supposed to be voting for the city of Portsmouth. And the thing about it though, when you don't vote like you should vote, then your neighbors should be asking you the same questions too. Why did you do that? Some people got Facebook followers and all kind of followers, but they need to be asking the question too. I'll tell you now, I am tired of it. And it doesn't make any sense though for people to sit there and it's always the wrong vote for the city of Portsmouth. And one thing for sure, well, you will see me again. You will see me again. To be continued.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Our next speaker is Mr. Mark Godaldik Yatrovsky. Mr. Yatrovsky, sir, you have 5 minutes.
Mayor, council, and other neighbors, good evening again. My topic tonight was decorum, and I am pleasantly surprised to see that since I formulated that as my topic, there have been some improvements in decorum here. Some management techniques are being applied that I had not seen previously, and I would say keep on keeping on. It is important for the conversation that takes place among yourselves and between yourselves and the people you work for, that those who come to this podium and you who speak from that dais are heard when you're speaking and when we are speaking. So Mayor Hawley used to say from time to time when things got a little rambunctious in the chamber, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a sporting event. And he had a little growl that went with that, and that was usually sufficient. It's tough to maintain good order in a room full of people. And it's incumbent on the people who are sitting in the room to regulate their own behavior, as well as it is for the presiding officer and the members of council to model and to work to maintain good order so that everybody's views can be heard and appraised and actions can be taken that are in accordance with good order. So congratulations on moving the ball forward a bit. May it move forward farther. Since I have a little time left on the clock, I'd like to touch on another topic, and that is the legislative agenda. Until a few years ago, the formulation of the city's legislative agenda was not solely the province of city council. There was a receptiveness among council to hearing from the public about items that we wanted to see carried to the General Assembly on the city's docket. I would ask you that as you come to that time, and we should be very close to that time now, where that agenda is formulated, that you solicit input from the citizenry. Now, we each have the ability to communicate with our senator and our delegate. Each resident of Portsmouth has one of each. But if there is an item of community concern and a number of citizens surface that item to our members on council, the fact that you all stand behind that item gives it a little more weight in the halls of the General Assembly than coming from single individuals. So I would ask you to consider reinstating the procedure of the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Mr. Maurice Taylor. Mr. Maurice Taylor. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
I certainly apologize.
That's quite all right. Members of the City Council. Members of the City Council, the most award-winning writers and directors in Hollywood, with all their imagination, could not have created the fiasco that has ensued in Portsmouth recently. You can't make this stuff up. But as embarrassing as events have been, it is time to correct some things, prepare for a more intelligent future, and move on. We must fix this mess. While I support the recall and encourage everyone to sign the petition, that's not enough. There must be a change in policies. No city officials should have the authority to fire anyone before that official himself has been on the job at least 6 months. No city employee should be fired without cause under any circumstances. There is always a cause. Stop hiding behind the disguise of a personnel matter where everybody in town knows that it's not true. You must find a way to make sure that that is not the standard operating procedure in Portsmouth if we want to attract qualified people. Who on earth would want to relocate to Portsmouth, find housing, make friends, and 10 months later find oneself unemployed? No city employees or officials should have to come to work every single day worried that this might be the day that they get fired simply because the boss doesn't like something I said, someone I ate lunch with, or some outfit I wore. It's just that ridiculous. This needs to be policy because we are losing competent, dedicated people because of jealousy, greed, and a hunger for power. I challenge you as elected officials to request assistance from the state of Virginia to save our city, even if it means dissolving the entire council and starting from scratch. If you truly want to be transparent, ask the state to investigate, regulate, and oversee until confidence in this council is restored. I also suggest you commission a liaison committee made up of willing citizens to oversee the council at least until an element of integrity returns. If you really truly want the best for this little seaport town, make the hard decisions, admit defeat, resign if necessary, and do the work. Our children are watching you. Industry is watching you. CNN is watching you. The world is watching you. If you can assure that you don't fix this mess with speed, humility, and a degree of decorum, you will see it in every aspect of the city, beginning at the polls in November. As my dad used to say, poop or get off the pot.
Our next speaker, thank you, ma'am. And once again, I apologize for mispronouncing your gender. Elvira Johnson Williams.
Good evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
My name is Elvira Johnson Williams. I reside at 3313 Armstead Drive in North Truxton in this fair city of Portsmouth. I can't top what my neighbor just said, but I agree 1,000% with her. I really do. But you know, I've been looking at a lot of YouTubing and all this other good stuff. This council, I cannot address no one person, so this council is a joke. It's a real joke. But I have talked to our brand new city manager and We had nice conversations and all this other good stuff, and I'm a little perplexed. You know, I don't quite get this. And then something said, think about it, and I did. Because right after you fired Miss Angel Jones, you was in a hurry. You was in a real big hurry to get you a new city manager. And then that got deferred. And I couldn't for the life of me put my finger on it. And my question to Seth was, hey Seth, what's the big hurry? Why we got to get us a new city manager right now? I said, Okay, so then I got to thinking about it again. I said, oh, that's right. June 30th is the end of June, and July 1st means ARPA money, don't it? That's what July the 1st meant. So that means to me, in my opinion, because I'm good for that, in my opinion, once that ARPA money got released to the state, that means that we can put our cousins, our relatives, our mother-in-laws, our father-in-laws, the cousin that don't have a job, ain't looking for a job, but gonna get one anyway, because they got the right folks in the right place to place them there. But when you got somebody qualified and you get rid of them, he could think. Okay. So, in my talk, I asked a question. And I might be wrong for this, but I don't think so. I asked how you feel, and I was told redeemed. Well, my meaning of redemption is different from a whole lot of people. But what I've learned, coming to this city, anybody that want to come to this city, this council gonna make sure they don't want to come here. They don't want to live here. They don't want to invest in here. You just threw money out the door because you don't like it. Y'all worried about that spot over there where the fire station is, 7-Eleven is, Dollar General is, police station is, and you got horses back there. But you ain't worried about none of that. You just don't want that money to come in to the city. But you want what you want to come to you. We, the citizens of Portsmouth, we would love to see this council with a little bit of integrity, like a whole lot of it. Find out for me, somebody, please, and tell me redemption don't mean revenge. Find out for me how, and I don't have nothing against Miss Chapman. I actually love her. I do. But 2 days on a job? Oh my God. 2 days? You don't know what's going on in the city. You got to bring yourself up to speed. Now, I had said before, common sense ain't always common, but let me say this. Personally, I would keep people in place that can help me get where I need to be, since I've already been put in the place I'm not comfortable to be in. You learn from your predecessors. This job here, as city manager, this is not an on-the-job training job. You got to know what you're doing when you're doing it. You got to know when to do it if it needs to be done. But to go around here and follow this hit list, because everybody on the internet know that y'all got a hit list. Yes, I'm gonna tell it. We know you got a hit list. We know we got the chief of police, he gone. We're looking for Mr. Bob Baldwin to be gone. We're looking for Mr. Mark Palmerchuk to be gone. We're looking for the CFO to be gone. We know your hit list. So prove to the people that you say you got integrity. Y'all say y'all got integrity. Y'all a joke. But show me that I'm wrong. Oh, and consciousness, by the way. We didn't forget. We helped you.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next speaker, Mr. Steve Carroll.
Steve Carroll, 3112 River Edge Drive. Yesterday afternoon, I was on the road and I heard Jeannie C. Riley's famous rendition of Harper Valley PTA. What a perfect segue for my comments tonight. Over the last several years, we have seen 3 excellent police chiefs come and go. Chief Hargis, dear Chief Angela Green, and Chief Prince. Each one of them demonstrated their law enforcement prowess and their devotion to duty. The records of these 3 police chiefs is largely scandal-free. Enough said. Our police department is somewhere in the neighborhood of 78 officers, understaffed by our authorized levels and by FBI standards. Yet our new city manager, not long on the job, fired our current police chief for reasons that I believe
Excuse me,
are not
sir, could you
adequate.
pause for a minute, please?
Yes, sir.
We can't have these outbursts. I would agree with what my good friend Mayor Holly said. This is not a sporting event, folks. We've got to keep decorum and allow the speaker to speak, okay? Please adhere to that. Sir, would you please continue?
Thank you, Mayor. And the city manager herself was hired under the most strange and inexplicable standards that I've ever seen in this city. I'm going to shoot from the hip from here forward. Let me tell you a little story about a name named Joe. Mr. Joe Wright, who I counted as a personal friend. And if you look carefully, Mr. Wright and I don't look exactly the same, do we? One night I was standing up here and I was addressing the issues that we're addressing now. And out of the blue, and it was not rehearsed, I went over to Mr. Wright and I said, "Joe, would you shake my hand?" And I went over to him. He reached his hand out without hesitation. The look on one particular member of council on his face would have burned a hole in the wall. The hatred that I saw and he saw. Let me tell you another story about a man named Sergeant Major. Everybody knows him. 8 weeks ago, he was sitting right here, and I was sitting down beside him because I hadn't seen him in months. I didn't even know if he was in good health. Somebody came up to us and said, "Sergeant Major, what are you doing?" His answer was, "I'm sitting next to my friend." My friend. You are an embarrassment to this city, and the 4 of you are going to feel the wrath of that embarrassment. I'm going to cut it real short and get right to the point. 2 of you are the subject of an immediate recall. All those present tonight that are in favor of the recall of those 2 council members, would you please stand? I'm finished and your constituents have spoken.
Our next speaker, Ms. Melissa Williams.
Somebody's cell phone is up here. That's a recording device. Oh, okay. My name is Melissa Williams. I'm a lifelong resident of Portsmouth, Virginia, and I am a military veteran. I come before the council today to talk about how programs like skills trades would benefit not only the youth of this city, but the city as a whole. We know that there is a high poverty rate in the city of Portsmouth. We also know, well, for those of us who don't know, I'll tell you today, that poverty breeds crime. I'm here asking for ways to combat the poverty rate in our city by suggesting that we implement programs for the youth such as skilled trades. If we can bring those skills back, I think that it would not only benefit the youth, but it would benefit the city as a whole. We have to give the youth something else to do so they will not have to resort to crime. Skilled trades such as carpentry, HVAC, roofing, mechanical, electrical, welding, painting, pipe fitting, maritime logistics would be a huge benefit to the community, and I believe that it should be brought back. The city would then also benefit by seeing higher employment rates. The finances will be generated to the city based off the taxes that these skilled trade industries would create. I want to see better for the city, and I want to see Portsmouth become a place that has a thriving middle class. The middle class is what will save our economy. The crime rates would decrease, and Portsmouth will become a place where people will want to live, work, and raise a family. I'm advocating for these types of programs because I believe it's what the city has been missing for many years. I believe this program will give the youth a sense of pride and responsibility. They will be busy using their hands to make a living and build things instead of using them to pick up guns and kill each other because they have nothing else to do. Let's make this happen with the support of everyone so that we can see to it that Portsmouth will be on the rise to becoming one of the top cities for anyone to want to come and live. Lastly, I'd like to say this. I feel like it's too much work that needs to be done for our city than people to keep coming in here every other week being emotional about things that happened weeks ago. We need to move on, figure out what's best for our community and what's best for these kids, and all work together as a community to make sure that we can make changes happen around here. Us coming in here being stuck on something that happened 3 weeks ago is not going to do anything for the community. So I just wanted to say that it's time to focus on what's really important, and that's your kids, my kids, and the city as a whole. So let's stop being emotional and apply logic to the situation. I said what I said. I said what I said. I said what I said, ma'am. I said what I said. Do you need me to say it again?
Ma'am.
Because I can say it in French if you want me to.
Ma'am, Miss Williams, you are speaking to us. So, ma'am, you are...
I'm not worried about that. I will leave.
Okay.
But I said what I said, though.
Have a seat, ma'am.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Do better.
Have a seat, please. Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Sergio O'Neill.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council. And good evening to our new city manager returning, Ms. Chapman. I do have a question of our city manager, and I would like to know what percentage of our city budget is directed towards mental health services, and what are we going to do in order to increase that line item? Because there is some research being done into the amount of money that each city pours into mental health, and right now Portsmouth is in a dire need of increased services. And the reason why I say that is because as a person that has had a personal experience with the mental health services in our city, as it relates to a family member just last week, I can tell you I was highly disturbed. On last Thursday, a member of my family had a mental health crisis, and I had to transport that person to Maryview Hospital. And during the process of finding out, the parameters around getting the TDO, or whatever the case might be, there is some confusion with our police department, with our dispatchers, and what actually needs to happen in our magistrate's office. Nevertheless, I took the path of, making my way to Maryview Hospital, and some information came to light. Just last year, our state mental health hospitals were closed down due to the pandemic, and over 90% of the inpatient mental health services were directed towards private hospitals. Now, we all know that we have Maryview Medical Center, and they have a mental health ward in that hospital. However, we know the history of Maryview and the level of services they have provided to this community. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I have not been pleased with the level of service at Maryview, and that came to fruition again this past week. A person with a mental health patient in that hospital, I spent almost 24 hours in that hospital alone trying to get that person services. And to be honest with you, the information that came back to me was that, well, you might be better off taking that person to Newport News or Norfolk or Chesapeake or Suffolk, any other city but what we have right here. What if I didn't have the transportation? What if that person would have just walked out? Because that person was actually discharged from the hospital. They didn't even know that he was still there. I had to physically go back to the hospital Friday afternoon in order to discover him still in the hospital. So that goes to show you that we have a serious issue in this city when it comes to mental health services. I'm sorry, we cannot rely on Maryview as it stands to provide private mental health services as a hospital facility right now. We just cannot. I'm not saying as a whole they don't have some skilled providers there, because they do, but the experience that I had was terrible. Imagine, every day we have people that are facing mental health crisis. And if we don't have the resources in this city in order to address them, we're going to have another problem besides COVID, besides poverty, besides this equity issue. Because I can tell you, as a city of majority black, we don't, as a people in the stereotypical world, we don't like to address mental health issues in our community. So you can imagine what it's going to look like when we don't have the resources, because we don't have the revenue to serve our black people and our white people with mental health issues. Because see, I can tell you right now, had I would have not known what I know about the mental health system, if somebody would just, if I was just getting there and just didn't know what to do, that situation would have turned tragic almost immediately. So I don't know if you all understand the frustration it takes. It weighs on you. When you are looking for services from a city that you pay a lot of taxes in, are struggling to get revenue in, because we seem to can't do that properly. It got to be beneficial to go into somebody's pocket somewhere. But what we need, but when, how does that make me feel? Because I can tell you right now, I don't want to hear no excuses. I don't want to hear that maybe we should have done something afterward. Maybe we could have figured it out after that person could have easily been killed or killed somebody else. That's too little too late. We have the opportunity to fix this now. And I can tell you right now, with the way this is going, we're going to really need mental health services for the entire city of Portsmouth. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, Councilwoman Lucas Burke.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Neal, for bringing that up. And what I meant to address to the audience is that July is Mental Health Month, Minority Mental Health Month at that. And if I could ask our city manager, we have another meeting this month, if we could have a representative from our behavioral health care to come in and address some of the issues, or maybe just highlight some of the things to bring awareness, because as a provider of services to adults with developmental disabilities, as a person who sits as the chair on the Hampton Roads Regional Jail, as a council member who understands that mental health and mental illness is the root cause of poverty and a lot of the crime that we have here in the city, if we could have a representative to come and give us an update on that, is just even an awareness piece, because this is Mental Health Month for minorities. I mean, and we have Mental Health Month for all citizens, but specifically in a city where we are predominantly represented by minority citizens. I'd appreciate that.
Yes,
thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Dr. Whitaker, sir, you have the floor.
I just want to also say that the equity piece, you have to see equity as also a mental health issue, because when you create disparities in communities and you have gaps in income, gaps in housing, okay, living wages not being given, those issues impact on child brain development. We were advised by the previous public health representative for our city about how stress causes child development issues. Part of those reasons are equity and economics, and so you cannot overlook the fact that when you have people who have been neglected, not only economically, socially, politically, we find that those things contribute to mental health. So I don't want the message to go forward that is one or the other, but it all works together as we try to better the mental health of all of us.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker, I believe the next speaker is Ms. Deborah Jones.
Good evening. My
Good
name
evening,
is
Ms.
Deborah
Jones.
Oakersby Jones, and I live 600 Lansing Drive. Mayor, you said we can't address anyone up there. Thank you. Because the people I have to address is sitting out here. Mimi, Terry.
Ma'am, if you would please address the dais.
Yeah, it's you included.
And as I said, we do not single out individuals,
I'm not-
please.
okay.
If you want to speak.
Well, I just want to say thank you.
Okay.
Especially to the Chief Prince.
Okay.
Because he was a great help to the organization, to Mothers Unseen Tears.
Yes, ma'am.
They came and they sat and they had a conversation with us. You showed up, but it was standing room only, so you couldn't sit at the table with us. But you have to check and see what these people are doing and helping the mothers before you get rid of them. Two major people that played a part in our organization just left. We couldn't even say goodbye to or give them a thanks. And that's why I want to thank the people that was there. This is my son, Jamel Howard. And I will always bring him here with me. He was killed on American Night Out. And when I brought it, I just mentioned it. And when I brought it up in the conversation at the meeting we had, right away, Chief, the intern chief at this moment, at the time, he said, we're gonna work on that. We're gonna put him some kind of way to fit him in on America Night Out. My son loved America Night Out. I go through his Facebook page, and all the way back to 2017, he had something nice to say about the police department. I'm not going to go that far back. I'm going to go to the last time he spoke about America Night Out, which was 2019. 2 hours after that he spoke, he was killed by his stepson. He was sitting in the park with his son, and this is what he said. Sitting in the park with my son, a young boy up here, about the age of 11, saying, F the police, as they rode by. My son said he shook his head, and he told the boy, all cops are not bad. There are good cops. And he went on to say, imagine the world without them. This was America Night Out 2019, and he was dead within 2 hours after saying this. So, Miss Mimi, I know you said don't call no name out, but I'm gonna say, it costs you in my heart to say it.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Chief Jenkins, they sat at the table with us. They cried. Well, we didn't. We did a river of tears. You tried to get in there, but you couldn't make it because it was stand room only. You squeezed your way through, but you had to keep going because you couldn't have stand nowhere. But it's people, you know, what I would like to say is Ms. Chapman, half of the people in here would love to see Miss Mimi sitting there. You know, you just can't get rid of a good thing, not knowing it or trying to investigate what is going on with that person. Chief Prince, he did his coffee talk. He did 2 police walks in one day. He was the community. He didn't show everything, just like they didn't want no pictures taken. Everybody not in this for a picture or op to take with somebody. You didn't stop and say, okay, let me get a picture. You got to understand, these people are helping people that is brutally and deeply cut up from tragedy.
Jones, go ahead and finish what you were saying. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Our next speaker is Chris Lindsley. Is it Chris Lindsley? Lindsay? I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Lindsay? Sir, if you would come forward and state your name and address, you have 5 minutes.
Young lady, you forgot your phone? Oh, okay. Again, I'm Chris Lindsay, and address 6017 College Drive. Today, my topic is crime. So, I was illegally evicted from a resident at 680 Military Road in Portsmouth by an ex-landlord who said that the Portsmouth Police works for him. So, even though I had charges against him for assault and battery, we went before Judge Ottinger, who banned him from coming on the property. I had a protective order against this individual. Because of his police friends, you know, I know all police aren't bad because I have good police friends myself, but he have a certain group that helped him stalk me, and some of them are still following me. They robbed me for everything that I had at my property. I have a handwritten letter from this individual stating that I've never been late with my rent in 11 years. I sent letters to the mayor's office, all of the representatives when this was going on, December 2019. The eviction was November the 17th. They came on the property 14 days before they was allowed to by law. Every time I tried to reach out to city officials, the police department, or whatever, his friends that run the city, like he said they do, prevented me from getting any justice. So now I have nothing. I've been homeless for 2 years because nobody in this city stood up to help me. Like I said, I have a handwritten letter from this individual who doesn't even pay his taxes over here. I mean, he brings trash from Chesapeake, from his construction company, his landscaping company, and his house, and puts it out at my property that I was paying rent for, so he don't have to pay taxes, you know, trash pickup taxes, you know, to dump all his debris. And then when he robbed me for everything that I had a 70-foot mobile home trailer on the property. They had my great aunt's antique belongings. You know, when she passed away, my mother asked me to hold on to that stuff. They tore down that trailer and disposed of all of her property. And Joanne and I went to pick up some of the property, and I called the police, and they sent 2 of his friends down there again. And what did they do? They called my ex-landlord and said, oh, he's over here. So they stood there and made sure I couldn't get none of my belongings. They stole my 74 Corvette Stingray, my 1950 Buick 8, my big grapple truck that I worked Hurricane Katrina with. They put me out of work. They stole everything I had. all my personal property from Spain, where I used to teach in the Montessori schools. I write children's books. They stole over $70,000 worth of my children's books and buried them on their property in Portsmouth. And I don't think that's allowed by law, to bury a tenant's property. So I want somebody in this council to make them dig up all my belongings and hold that man accountable for robbing me with his corrupt police friends. And Officer Wynn, I don't know where he's at now, but he was one of them that I recorded who came on the property and told my ex-landlord, Jonathan Luter, he's got a warrant for you for assault and battery. And he's also have a protective order against you. So you need to go down to the magistrate's office real quick and take out a retaliatory warrant against, protective order against him. And even though I had in place protective orders and warrants for his arrest for assault and battery, they still gave him granted him protective orders against me. And then the judge dismissed the charges against him with prejudice, so I couldn't refile after he already admitted to Judge Ottinger that he did in fact assault me. So I have permanent nerve damage in my left dominant arm, while this man has stolen everything I have and sold it without titles and everything. Went in my house, stole all my furniture, all my school stuff, all my medical stuff, all my money, all my gold, all my silver, everything I ever worked for. And nobody won't hold this man accountable. I don't understand how this man tells everybody that the Portsmouth police works for him, and they sent 7 sheriff deputies to illegally evict me 14 days before they was allowed to come on that property by law. And he's standing out there with a bulletproof vest on. Why is he wearing a bulletproof vest to evict someone that's unarmed and doesn't have a gun?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So I have this big poster here that's showing everything that happened. The police, my landlord, the property that I was renting.
Well, sir, if you would hold on to that, I think it may be useful to you. Madam City Attorney, do you have anything to add to this discussion?
If we will get his contact information and talk with him to see what our office can do to help with the process that you've been through.
All right,
So
because
please-
when I contacted the police, it took me 1.5 years to get a copy of my police report, so I couldn't even put a claim into my insurance company to have money to live off of or hire an attorney.
Yes, sir. If you would just get your information to the nice young lady right behind you with the beautiful earrings, sitting right on the front row.
Okay.
And I will have someone from my office follow up with you and see what we can do, okay?
Okay, and I do want to say one other thing. The city manager is doing a great job, and obviously people haven't read her credentials.
Sir,
Hey,
sir,
it falls in line with my situation.
Sir, your time is over, sir.
You-
Have a nice,
okay.
have a nice evening. Your time is up, sir. Ms. Hogg, could you get with him, or Monica? Thank you. Our next speaker is Samuel Blackwell. Samuel Blackwell? Mr. Blackwell. Well, I better. Mr. Blackwell? Samuel, are you present, sir? It appears that Mr. Blackwell is no longer with us. So, seeing no additional business to conduct from my colleagues on council, this meeting is adjourned. Everyone, be safe and stay healthy.